Warning, this episode contains graphic language, gruesome dragon stabbings, childbirth, and as always, teen angst. Also, there'll be spoilers for chapters 1 through 10 of Inheritance, book 4 of the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Listen at your own risk.
Is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. Anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host who also wouldn't trust his child alone with that tricksy elf woman, as she would probably ruin his self-esteem with radical honesty and a dash of her elven superiority complex. It's a winning combination.
And I'm Jacqui Lanier, and is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? The podcast where we wish our all-nighters were as productive as Aragon's. There are no miraculously healed infants over here, just a bunch of unfinished podcast scripts.
So sad, but so true. If you'd like to join the ranks of your fellow listeners by supporting us on Patreon, there's a link in the show notes. And we want to start giving supporters a shout-out on the show.
Yes.
And just a huge thank you this week to Ryan Y.
Yes.
Our first subscriber on Patreon. You're a legend, man. You're Dragon Rider, for sure.
Yes, shout out to Ryan. And I also have some new housekeeping before we kick off Inheritance. For this final season of the OG Inheritance cycle, we're doing a little merch giveaway for any listeners that review us on Apple Podcasts.
Gonna be cool.
Yes, just send us an email with a screenshot of your review to isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com. And when this season wraps, we'll choose some winners and send like tumblers, hats, stickers, etc. I'm thinking we'll post more details and photos of the swag bundles on our socials at isthisjustfantasypod on TikTok and at justfantasypod on Instagram.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool, and we'll pick some winners based on some crazy reviews. So, like, make them connected to Aragon, make them hilarious. That's really the bar. I think.
Yes. Are you ready for this recap, Dane?
I don't know.
I've been working pretty hard on it. I think I've got everything as condensed as it's getting. It's 3 whole books, so I'm going to try to be quick. So we fade in as a beautiful, regal elf rides her magical horse through the forest with her companions. As the night deepens, they realize something is amiss. They realize something is amiss. From the gloom appears. Just kidding. I'm not going to do all of that.
Thank God. I was like, we're really back in the beginning.
No, we don't have 12 hours, and I don't hate you. I really did make this quick, I think. So we meet Aragon, or Kevin, a plucky young bean farmer, as he discovers a dragon egg in the cursed local mountains. Just normal teen stuff.
Yeah, classic.
And after the egg hatches, making him the first new dragon rider in a century under the rule of the insane, genocidal murder wizard Galbatorix, Aragon's story is set in motion when his village is attacked, his home is destroyed, and his father-uncle is killed by eldritch horror monsters. So we've got to be headed for what kind of plot, Dane?
Revenge!
That's correct. Aragon and Saphira, along with their totally normal storyteller and mentor Brahm, embark on a journey filled with magic school, combat training, and emotional growth. We have a heist plot. Brahm is tragically murdered. We befriend an emo older teen, and there's a prison break / unconscious elf napping, all before we join the Varden's resistance against the evil empire. And the first book wraps up with Aragon helping the Varden defeat an army of Urgles led by a shade like he isn't 6 months removed from harvesting rutabagas. It's a truly transformational plot in that book. And Eldest kicks off with a bang, seeing the murder of our third dad, Ajahad, his daughter becoming queen president, and Aragon journeying to Elis Mira to train with a mysterious fourth dad. Hope that guy has a good life insurance policy. Meanwhile, brother cousin Roran embarks on his own odyssey across Alagasia as Carvajal's Moses, basically, complete with death threats, piracy, and whirlpools. Aragon meets a secret ancient dragon rider, gets another training montage, and transforms into a human-elf hybrid, and the POVs converge at the end of Eldest in the climactic Battle of the Burning Plains, where Murtagh reveals he's Aragon's brother and is being forced to serve good old genocide and Gal.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's correct, which takes us to Brissinger. And the revenge plot wrap-up you've been waiting for, Dane. Yes. Aragon, Saphira, and Roran do a little genocide of their own, killing the Razak and Leatherblocka in their stinky lair at Hellgrind. They rescue Katrina, and Aragon stays behind to lay a curse upon his brother cousin's father-in-law.
Yeah,
Isn't family fun?
Yeah, that's a family dynamic I don't want to get into.
Yeah, their reunions must be dicey.
Can you imagine Alagazian Christmas?
Yeah, the matching shirts they wear to Disney World, I don't want to know what they say on Meanwhile, at the wall, Naswada is using knives to make alliances, Roran is working his way up the corporate ladder, and some killer elven furries have joined up as Aragon and Saphira's, but mostly Saphira's, personal bodyguards. Your favorite emo brother and Thorn pop up for a battle, and we add some gruesome Imperial zombie soldiers to the mix in the war. But that's mostly Roran's problem, because Aragon takes a mid-book detour to help Auric win the Dwarven clan election before he and Saphira have to head back for their final summer seminar at Oramus University. And if you happen to miss the part where Aragon needs a sword, he solves that little conundrum by assaulting a tree god on the advice of a werecat and getting possessed by a master smith. A thing that really happened. So he's geared up. He finally finds out that the source of Gal's power is disembodied dragon consciousnesses, and he's officially taken way too much PTO. So Aragon and Saphira head back for the climactic battle of this book at Feinster, armed with Glader's Eldenari, as Oramus and Glader themselves join up with the rest of the Elven army to attack Gilead. And Brissinger wrapped up with a really, really mixed bag of a split-screen battle montage as the Varden take Feinster and Arya becomes a Shadeslayer too, while we get our first on-screen monologue from Galbatorix as he possesses Murtagh to murder Oramus and Glader. So
There's a bit of a mixed bag there.
Yeah, so on that dicey note, are you ready to wrap this saga up?
I am so ready. It's the beginning of the end, Jax.
I can't believe it, dude.
And I feel like it's the beginning of the end. Just so if you're listening and you're like super psyched, it's the beginning of the original Inheritance cycle.
Yes.
We're still going to do some other stuff.
Yes.
But I went back to our first episode.
Ooh, took a walk through memory lane.
I put it on. I took a walk through the park. It was a little rainy.
I was about to say A Walk to Remember, but that movie's sad.
We don't want that ending.
No.
Spoiler alert, I guess. 20 years too late. Anyway, so I wanted to see what we started that show with, and we talk about what kind of nerds we are, our fantasy origin stories. Of course, I am a gritty TTRPG gamer with a love for magic systems.
With a dungeon, notably, in your home.
Yeah, with a dungeon that we are currently.
Yes.
And not the cool type of dungeon. not the erotic dungeon.
The gaming type of dungeon.
Yeah. And you described yourself as the most basic of bitches.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, your words. And you grew up with Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, now that you've been locked in this room with me recording for hours and hours on end.
That's correct.
For months and months of time.
It's a really bold choice.
Lots of
now that you
video
put it like
calls.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
How have you changed as a person? How are you better? You know what I mean? In what way have you, we've all changed over the course of this time. How have you changed? How is this the most important part of that? So I'll just leave that there.
How has writing about the young adult fantasy novel Aragon changed me fundamentally?
Yeah, your whole existence.
Yes. As a 32-year-old woman, I feel no. I think really though, this has been interesting because in general, I don't like a lot of attention. I don't like to do a lot of things publicly or performatively. So this has been a really interesting experiment in pushing my boundaries there. I think I remember saying somewhere in that first episode, it just is way out of my comfort zone. So
are you feeling more comfortable though?
I am totally.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay,
I feel like it's fun. I think I benefit a lot from being in this room with just you and Kevin and thinking of our listeners as kindly external presences out there and
all of
not
nice
here watching me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really fun. What about you?
It's just been really fun. I just had a good time. I realized.
How are you changed fundamentally, Dane?
How
have you grown?
Well, first off, I just have to say Kevin's changed me the most.
That's true.
I feel like I've grown as a person because of him. Sorry, Aragon's changed me the most. Truly, I actually feel very similar. I think I'm not so much scared of public speaking or I don't think that's not what you're talking. Putting yourself out there in that way.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more. I think I'm equally terrified. I just fumbled into that as way more often. But I think I'm getting more comfortable just with the idea that I'm a true nerd. I love this stuff.
Yes.
We've talked about this extensively, and there is truly so much that does not get in here, right?
Yeah, if there were any doubt in my mind before this that I just kind of dabbled in nerd culture because I just like the light stuff like Harry Potter. The sheer number of hours we've spent talking, the number of words we've written to make this podcast, I'm like, oh no, I'm in it. I'm in it deep. But before we dive any deeper into this, the fourth book of the Inheritance cycle, I wanted to bring up, we had a listener send us an email with some questions that I thought we could answer. So thank you, first of all, to Kylie for writing in.
Oh, yeah, Kylie.
Yes,
thank you. We love
the
your email.
nicest email.
Yeah.
So thank you. You are the best. So Kylie asked, if Runan forged you a rider's blade, what would its name be?
What does names be? Okay, I'm sad. I'm a lone warrior.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
The wandering warrior.
Yeah.
That's you.
Enemy sorrow. Yeah. Or like, hold on. Edge of justice.
I mean, as a person I'm well aware is an edgelord, I feel like that's a vibe for sure. Yeah. I love that.
What about you? I want to know.
Yeah.
Because you described yours. What was your sword like? What's your rider blade again?
Dane, you know, like my memory's bad. I don't remember.
I think yours is pink.
No.
White.
I think I did. Yeah, I think I did like
Pearlescent?
an Aurora Borealis kind of like soap bubble look, like a sheen on a white blade.
On a white blade.
Yeah. I think I would go with like point of, not justice. You just said justice.
It's a great,
I would say
it's a great
honor,
idea.
but that's not really my core attribute, I don't think. Like point of wit.
Point of wit.
A point of cynicism.
Ooh, what about like the last word?
Yes. Okay.
There it is. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's fucking cool. Like
Yes.
a rapier, right? I think yours is like, would you say you were having like a thinner blade? I cannot remember that comment.
I don't
Pretty
remember
sure. We will get an email about that. That's the thing we'll
Sorry.
get an email about. Sorry, guys.
So Kylie also asked, to go along with the rider blade conversation, what would your legendary moniker be? Like how Aragon has Shade Slayer and how Arya also has Shade Slayer and how Roran has Stronghammer.
Oh, gosh.
You'd be Dane Vincent.
Yes, Dane Vincent. Gosh, that's so tough. It would be like Dane Vincent, Bear the North.
Yes, 100%. I love that. I mean, I just feel like already
I'm an Urgle too, right?
Yes.
In this, yeah. So Bear of the North works.
Dane Vincent, Bear of the North, wielding enemy sorrow.
Enemy sorrow, yeah.
Or wielding Edge of Justice. You need to make a decision now.
I think, you know what we said though? I had a giant mace.
Oh God!
So mine is fucking
enemy sorrow.
Enemy sorrow.
Yeah, 100%. That's right. It's
be.
not a sword.
Yeah.
It's hard because I feel like Jacqueline doesn't lend itself well to like legendary heights. It's like Jacqueline, you know.
Well, that's just your name in the ancient language. When people hear it, they're like, "Wow, that's beautiful. That's musical."
Lovely. That's nice. The melody of
Jacqueline.
Well, no, Jacqueline. The melody of
cool.
Again, not justice. Now my brain is just like stuck in a loop on
you need like
justice.
a place, or like a thing, like melody of the tides.
Or
something like
sold.
Melody of the winds.
Melody of the mountains. Melody of the winds.
Ooh.
As
Last
a Patrick
word
Rothfuss,
with Melody of the Winds.
Yeah,
that's fucking
it's
cool.
a Rothfuss stan. I could get with.
All of these are cooler than
Really
mine.
just stumbled into it because right as we started recording, I was like, I didn't think of answers to those questions at all.
And unfortunately, I gave it some thought.
They're
okay.
good. But thank you again to Kylie. We love that we have some of our lore established now, so we can head into the final battles of this war.
Okay, do we have enough listeners where we need fan art as us as an elf and Urgle with Edge of Sorrow? Okay, anyway.
I'm down.
That'd be awesome. Okay, here we go. Are you ready?
Yes. I was born ready.
All right, guys. This is the
Let's
start
do
of the
it.
fourth book. Here we go. Chapter 1, Into the Breach.
Yes.
As has been the case with all the books before this one, Paolini delivers with the most banger of an opening.
Yes.
If you'll remember, Aragon featured an action-packed prologue with the Shade. There's an eldest. We had the Urgles being hunted in the tunnels of Trondheim with the death of King Daddy Ajahad.
Oh, yeah. Rest in peace, sweet soul.
Yeah.
Beautiful soul.
A beautiful soul. In Brisingar, we were brought back right to the climax of our revenge plot near Drasleona, and Inheritance is no different.
Yeah.
We're snapping back right into the story with Eriga and Saphira roaring through the sky to lead the charge in the city of Bellatona. It's fucking perfect, man.
Yeah, this battle I think was one of the most fun. Like, just to be like, holy shit, we're back, baby.
Yeah, it's so cool how he gets us back into these books. Anyway, it turns out that the Varden is attacking Bellatona to get its leader, Lord Bradburn.
Yes.
Probably an important guy. Out of his keep. Just a heads up, everyone. We are near Leona Lake.
Of course we are. Why wouldn't we be?
Yeah, it's the most important geographical feature in this series for sure.
It is a big-ass lake.
I know, it is huge. Think they have Alleghasian like dirt bike bros and boat bros by the lake, on the shores of that lake?
I feel like that really places us as coming from a specific geographic location in Southern California.
Remember the riverboating days, Jax?
Yes.
Those were fun.
Yes, the Glamis days,
Yeah.
the Havasu days.
Well, this battle was fun to read with lots of intense combat sequences. The Elven kill team and Arya at Aragon's side to protect him, and he needs it as the enemies are definitely leveling up on the Empire side. We learned that a lot of the normal soldiers have been like fully warded now, but luckily the big Imperial guns, I'm talking Murtagh, Thorn, maybe a Shade, and Galbatorix are not in this conflict.
Okay, good.
We
Rest easy.
Yeah, we can all take a sigh. We learned a fun fact about Saphira, who can now take on 20 or 30 soldiers alone. No problem. Even if she isn't warded, I'm thinking.
She's such a badass.
Yeah, she's terrifying. I guess the only thought about that is, wouldn't they be able to like surround her and like flank her and like spear her? I don't know. It just seems...
I mean... You would imagine she'd be warded, and even if the wards are like weak for some reason,
she's got scales, right?
Yeah, the scales would help with that. Or I think at a bare minimum, someone like Galbatorix would warn his fighters, like, don't even bother. Dragons are so heavily warded.
Right.
Like, he's never going to overlook that.
She's also got a tail, and we can't underestimate the power of a tail slap.
No, I would not want to. I wouldn't want to be caught in that position. I mean, I guess you're like, wouldn't a bunch of soldiers flank her? I'm like, I certainly wouldn't.
We also learned that the Empire's archers now all have those special ward-breaking enchanted arrows. We've seen these several times since the prologue of the first book, but it's unclear if this is a common thing outside of the Rozek, Durza, and Gal, or if Gal's magicians always knew this. I ask because the Varden's magicians have surely mind-broken enough of Gal's people to get this information themselves, right?
Naswada's got her whole like counter intel operation that's been happening since the last book with the spies rooting out spies, doing a little spy murder
stuff. So anyway, at this point of the war, the Empire soldiers are really focused just on killing Aragon and Saphira and his elven entourage, the idea being that the Varden soldiers will just instantly break if they can bring those key players down. And I like hearing about the strategy and how it's changed over the war. It's interesting for me to get some of that. And in classic Aragon fashion, he doesn't make it out of the battle without an embarrassing moment. He tries to throw a spear and misses so badly that he doesn't even hit the wall. Instead, he throws it over the tower. It's a real smooth move.
He did his best.
Yeah. Right after that blunder, Arya throws a spear and, of course, hits two soldiers with one spear. So we can confirm our legendary dragon rider is still a dweeb.
Listen, she doesn't have to bring herself down to make him feel better. Shine, girl, shine.
You're not wrong. Bolstered by Aragon's lameness, the Empire sends a single rider bursting through the gates of the keep. As a lone rider approaches our heroes, we see that he's wielding a magical lance that glows with light. Aragon instantly fears for Saphira's safety and throws his mind open, regardless of the risks of magicians' attacks, to kill the horse and the rider it's on. However, wait, the horse isn't on a rider. The rider's on a horse to kill the rider.
Well, I don't know. The horses in this book are either like our most, our closest companions named after our grandfathers and our mentors, or the horses are being ridden to death.
Yeah.
So
you can guess which one this is.
Who knows?
The Elven strike team, also terrified of this magical lance, strikes before Aragon can cast his spell. They savagely open a pit of death below the rider, and he and his horse fall into it.
Yes.
But as the rider falls, he tosses the lance at Saphira, who tries to paw it away and misses, and the lance penetrates a yard into Saphira's chest. What the?
Hated that.
That's 3 feet.
Well, also, I just was like, I feel so secure all the time with Saphira. I was like shocked when she missed the deflection.
I remember this as a kid, and I freaked out. I thought she was going to die.
Yeah.
So I was freaked. I remember that moment.
Same.
Anyway, Aragon instantly loses it a little bit, using all his power, all the gems on his belt and sword, and his ring full of Brahm's stored energy in Arryn. He also is about to reduce this man to ash.
Yes, he's like harnessing. He's like filling with the power.
He's crazy.
Yeah.
However, he's too slow to act as Bloodgarm runs up and bites the man's throat out.
What?
This is shocking. It's only only chapter 1. The book has just started. We have an elf, a famously humanoid creature.
Yeah.
Biting this man's throat out.
God.
He's vegan, Kevin. He's vegan.
Well, not anymore. Now we're doing a little late cannibalism on top of like the whole meat eating thing. It's also cannibalism, maybe?
Cannibalism. I don't know. Anyway, as this is unfolding above the tower, someone explodes. You heard that right? They explode. A person blows up. They implode everybody. But Aragon's too focused on Saphira and the lance embedded 3 feet in her chest, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Made scary by the fact that his mind is still closed to her because she kept her head right. She's still fighting off.
He can't tap in.
Yeah. However, they need to learn to relax when they're surrounded by the elves because, like, pretty quickly with like baby pins and tweezers, they pull that right out. She's healed, a healing song, and like it's the quickest splinter removal of all time.
Yeah, the Elven Strike team really comes in the clutch, especially notably Bloodcar.
Seriously.
Wild.
Well, getting back to that, after she's better, we get an update on the explosion because Aragon just straight up ignored it originally. It turns out that in the moments right before he was ripping out that man, Bloodgar was ripping out that man's throat, he also had invaded the mind of the Empire Magician protecting that guy. And in anger, just made the guy explode.
Jesus Christ.
So think about the multitasking. I mean, we knew the Sex Panther was going to be good with his mouth. But this is the largest sex organ in your brain. You know what I mean? Did I say too much? Too much?
Way too much. Dan, this book is for children.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm reading between the lines. I think we know what Paolini's saying. Anyway.
We didn't write Bloodgar, to be
true.
fair.
He did do that. Then we get a little download about the magical lance, which turns out to be one of the 12 dot darts, which were thought to be lost to the ages after the war between dragons and elves. And I'm going to talk more about these purpose-crafted dragon slayers in the deep dive. But for now, just know that his lance would not be something Galbatorix would have wanted loose in the Empire, as it would be a threat to even him and Shuriken. So that's a plus.
Okay.
But before we can meditate on how good a thing it is that the Varden have this weapon, this chapter ends with the entire keep collapsing on a group of Varden soldiers. Roran, unfortunately, is one of them. And just as he's about to be buried, he has one last moment to look into his brother cousin's eyes, and then he's gone.
I mean, all I could think is like, looks like our just and rightful ruler is slacking a bit on his building code enforcement. Like this engineering really should be better constructed. It's made of stone.
At the end of the day, it is Galbatorix's like code enforcement
Yes.
that kills the strong hammer. What a chapter, though, from start to finish. It's a banger, and we can stop here. This was awesome. We'll call it a day. We're done.
No, Dane, we have to find out what happens to Stronghammer.
Okay.
Which takes us to chapter 2, titled Hammerfall. So
It'll be fine.
yeah, we start this ominously named chapter picking up on that cliffhanger. Aragon watches an entire castle wall bury his brother cousin, and things are looking dicier than they should for a battle where a freaking dragon and Strike Force elf are trying to take a tier 3 city. Like, this should be...
I mean, it's Pelotona.
I know. But Aragon is not handling the potential flattening of his brother cousin well. You thought he freaked out about Saphira. This is just amping up and up. He's starting to panic as he starts like the mental math on how much strength it would take to start shifting the rubble just magically. But Brom's boy has something tricksy up his sleeve, which is good. I think he maybe remembered that Brom would murder him for trying that. He sprints headlong and starts climbing the pile of rubble, like running into the exposed second story of the keep. So like the wall falls off the front.
And he like poops up.
Yes.
Okay.
He runs past enemy commanders into a soldier that he punches to death with his fucking reinforced hand.
This was fucking cool.
Yes, and down the stairs into the castle's main hall. So now he's like climbing subterranean into the rubble.
Just with the punch on the knuckles, I just imagine there's a dwarf somewhere like, yeah, boy.
Yes, 100%. So he runs into more enemy soldiers in the hall, but he could absolutely give a fuck and just lights his sword on fire to charge straight through them toward the front door where Roran was standing when the wall fell. So he's like now going to try to backtrack into the rubble.
Gotcha. Now he's going into it. He's behind it and going into it. Okay.
He taps into a new sword ability using it like welding gear to cut through the iron bars of the portcullis before charging straight through. And after winding his way like through these like weird halls and warrens, he finally finds his beloved brother cousin who's totally fine. Just completely chill. He's covered in dust. He is still fighting a couple of soldiers who were near him when the wall fell. And of course, like, Stronghammer just completely drops a guy before he starts to make fun of Aragon a little bit about how long it took him to get there. I'm just like, dude.
I love in any scenario, everyone's like, come on, dork. What took you so long?
It's a fucking power move. I do love seeing their, like, bond here.
Yeah.
I'm like, good for you guys, just like clowning on each other a little bit. But unfortunately, the chapter ends as Roran's joke is cut off kind of mid joke. He doesn't get the meaty conclusion he wants. As people who write a lot of jokes, I feel so bad for him. I bet he had a great punchline up his sleeve.
The payoff's not there.
Yes, because it's cut short as he faints. So I guess the wall kind of got to him.
Well, that takes us to chapter 3, Shadows on the Horizon. And before I dive deeper into this chapter, I just want to say, what a bro move that Arya and Bloodgarm followed Aragon in his rush to help his brother cousin.
So nice.
They're his true friends. It's good. It's good friend dynamics. Although it is striking me that this group is pretty much like the most nerdy bunch that we've ever met. The coolest one is in their trio is the sexy musk furry. Then you have the emo, socially inept princess with anger issues, and finally the awkward, less cool brother cousin and dragon rider, Aragon.
I mean, he has a dragon.
And I'm thinking that, like, Jode needs to start a D&D group because he for sure has the beginnings of something great. You know what I mean?
Of course, Jode would be the DM.
Hell yeah. Anyway, Aragon drops his priceless sword to catch his brother cousin before he falls unconscious.
Yes.
Who is okay. In fact, Roran is the only one who's okay in this area. Everyone else has died. Just everyone around him is dead.
That was wild. Because when we saw Roran up, I was like, oh, maybe he was in a little pocket of the building. Nope. But no. Only Roran was in the pocket.
Well, the other guys who were alive, Roran killed.
Yeah.
So, like,
so true.
It's just
so true.
Roran's crazy.
Yeah.
Bloodgarm heals Roran, and I wonder if he still has blood on his mouth while he hears Roran. Like, just the imagery of all that. Like,
that's true. You know what I'm remembering? When Bloodgarm healed Roran, there's kind of like a weird vibe. Did you pick up on that at all, where Bloodgarm seemed like a little pissed about having to do that?
Drama.
I was like,
I did not notice this.
Interesting.
But now that you say it, do you think this is like I don't like to be told what to do by anyone because I'm an elf? Or I don't want to heal your brother because he's a human? Like, which racism do you think this is?
Listen, I'm giving Bloodgarm a little more benefit of the doubt. You know how Oramus was like not a racist elf? He wasn't as much of an elf supremacist as a lot of elves. I somehow feel like that about Bloodgarm for no reason. It's not like written in here, but my headcanon is like that about Bloodgarm.
He feels approachable but dangerous.
I just feel like he's kind of petty.
Yeah.
It was like, ugh, I don't have time for this.
What am I gotta clean my face,
I'm
man.
busy.
Anyway, Roran and Arya talk a bit of trash, which I love. The banter between them is what I really want for Aragon and Arya, but I doubt we'll ever see it. Roran then leads the charge out of the rubble with our band of nerds to find Lord Brad. I love it because he leads it. Anyway, Stronghammer is quickly mobbed by soldiers and even stabbed in the thigh, but responds to being stabbed by charging the spears. Insane.
Shocking.
It's a good thing that Roran isn't a writer. His dragon would be the most savage temperament. I mean, I think it would be worse than the whole shade becoming a writer becoming a shade situation.
Oh, you think?
Yeah,
Roran, just the Stronghammer psyche running in the veins of a dragon.
We don't need that.
No.
Anyway, the four of them kill the soldiers. It's a slaughter, but they quickly move on and find Lord Bradburn.
Yes.
Who, I have to say, seems to be a bit of a jerk.
I mean, generous read. He's probably having a pretty shitty day, Dane. There's like a bloodthirsty dragon just ransacking the city that he's been in charge of probably his whole life because nepotism.
It's feudalism.
Sorry.
But not a nice guy. He won't order his men in the city to stand down, which is generally mean because for context, this is really rough in urban warfare. So stuff like mobs of soldiers would be spread throughout this entire city, like hiding in houses and stuff. Okay. And without them being called off by their leader, it's going to take a long time and the city won't be safe.
That is kind of a dick move. So like he knows he's been got, but he's like, I'm just gonna make it hard for you for kind of no reason.
Yeah. It is notable to add on to his jerkiness that he seems to dislike both the elves and the Urgles that have joined up with the Varden army, but he doesn't get much time to be racist because Arya just grabs his face and does a bit of mind melding. Maybe proving him a bit right. This scares the soldiers who think that Arya has killed their leader.
Oh, shit.
Aragon's like, calm down. But as he's like having everybody calm down, he stops because the werecat army, you heard me right.
Finally, Dane.
The werecat army has come to the rescue.
Yes.
What a wild ride.
Yes, dude. But that takes us to chapter 4, King Cat. We pick back up with Aragon, Neswata, and Jormungandr in the castle's main hall, waiting for the arrival of the werecats, like political delegation that are going to send in. Cats.
Yeah, cat stuff.
So they're brainstorming about what the creepy little cat people might want for becoming allies. So they're like, what can we use to deal with them? When a herald announces the arrival of the werecat king, Grimer Halfpaw, who has honestly some of the best titles, I think, so far in the series.
They're pretty cool.
He's Lord of the Lonely Places, ruler of the night reaches, he who walks alone.
That's cool.
All of those slap.
They all
Every
slap.
last one of them.
Yeah.
And he looks like, his appearance is described as a 4-foot tall, basically early aughts emo dream in a leather vest and a fucking fur loincloth with some like skulls dangling about his person for flair. It is wild.
Is this what love feels like? I feel like he might be the most emo character.
Yeah, 100%. So this intense dude is striding right up to Neswata, just up the center, and he only pauses to hiss when he catches sight of Angela. So he's like walking up the center aisle,
Yeah.
looks at Angela, hisses.
Oh, yeah, because Angela's here.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And don't fail to mention, she's knitting a sock with 6 needles while she's, from what I remember, like
Yeah.
she has 6 needles going. She's knitting a sock. She looks back at the king of the werecats and just says, cheap, cheap.
Yeah.
And the king just fucking barely restrains himself from attacking her. And is it just me or is this book feeling like off the rails already?
It for sure has like vibes that's slightly more unhinged than I remember the other like 3 books being, especially as we're in the first few chapters.
Yeah,
of
this is
book.
the 4th chapter.
Well, I mean, Christopher Paolini's not pussyfooting around. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
This doesn't seem to throw the cat people off their mission, though, and Grimer continues, like, straight up to Neswata. Queen President is smooth as ever, thank God. She takes none of this, almost disaster to heart. She deals out, like, a little flattery to Halfpaw with a side of, so why the fuck are y'all here? What's the deal? Grimer uses a slightly strained hunting metaphor. I didn't really like all the pieces of it together to explain that since it's become clear Gal isn't willing to kill Aragon, the werecats are going to jump on the opportunity to exploit the insane murder wizard emperor's miscalculation to join forces with Aragon and exact some revenge on Gal for cat stuff.
It's pretty vague.
Yeah, I don't know why they're mad at him, but
I mean,
I don't care.
Yeah,
we have
whatever.
more allies.
We got werecats.
Yes. So Neswata gets down to business questioning Grimer to make sure they can really trust the secretive strange cat people.
Yeah.
And in the course of satisfying her questions, Halfpaw lets slip that the werecats will also command the loyalty of all the continent's normal cats if they're needed in battle, which
Everyone needs cats in battle.
I mean, well, now we all get to imagine that some Imperial soldiers somewhere are going to have to answer the age-old would you rather about whether you'd want to fight one creepy supernatural cat or 100 regular cats. That's fun.
Okay, now I need to know which one would you choose. Because I know my answer. I could easily beat up a weird-ass cat kid. No problem.
I think I'm also taking Cat Kid, but not because I relish the thought of beating up children-looking mythical beings.
I mean, if you're going to look like a creepy-ass cat kid, I'm going to kick your ass. That's weird.
The allergies would kill me alone.
Yeah, that's right.
So-
Yeah, the
so
allergies would
true.
kill me too, Kevin.
Dude, Galbatorix is going to need to make some fucking magical Claritin stat. But interestingly, all Grimer wants for his alliance, like all he wants in return, is outfitting and food for his army and a fluffy cushion at the feet of the ruler who will replace Gal if they manage to win. That is not a joke I'm making. He actually asks for a nice little royal cat bed.
Yeah, that's weird.
Neswata bargains a bit
Yeah.
on the face of this. She's like, you can only have some armor. You can only we don't have enough chickens, but you can have, I think they can have 2 suits of armor, right?
No, they can only they can only have one suit, but they pick which it is.
Oh, gotcha. So whether it's child form or cat form.
Which is really, again, another hard question these people are going to have to ask themselves.
Yeah, so when they finish hammering out the terms of this new alliance, the chapter wraps up with Grimer agreeing to seal their bargain as long as it isn't Angela who does the security check brain scan on him.
I'm with him on that.
Yes, he's like, anybody but her. So put one in the pro column for new allies. A little creepy, but new allies. You love it.
Chapter 5, Aftermath. We have cats.
We got cats.
Lots of cats.
So many cats.
Is this a good thing?
You know?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But like Kevin said, I do know lots of troops will be losing this war to allergies.
And unfortunately, this is a situation that it will be just as deadly for the Varden as
Yes.
it's like
Yes,
it's like dysentery in the Civil War.
Cuts both ways. Yeah. But anyway, we're still with Aragon in this brief chapter, catching up with Angela about how exactly she knows the king of the werecats, because of course she does.
Yeah.
So far, Angela has trained under a powerful madman.
That's her.
Is honored among the Urgal people.
Yep.
Has won the sacred weapon exclusive to the Dwarven priests.
Yeah, why wouldn't she?
And has spent time among the elves in their secret lands. Not to mention all of her magic items in possession, which includes some dragon bones that allow her to tell the future.
Yep.
Why wouldn't she know the king of the secretive and elusive cat people?
With all the other stuff, sure. Why not?
I know people love Angela, but it is something. And meanwhile, this main character can't throw a fucking spear.
I mean,
I don't know, man. I digress.
But he did hop into the second story of a ruined building, and that was cool.
I'll take what we can get. Angela heads out to find Solomum's mother, who might be in the camp. Well,
I hadn't even considered that we might catch up with old acquaintance, like old family reunion.
Of course.
Weird.
Well, imagine their Christmas. While Roran heads back to help in the city.
Okay.
Aragon and Saphira head off to get some grub.
Nice.
And we get some nice descriptive chapter here with Saphira and Aragon as they fly. Aragon's so lucky.
Yeah.
I want a private jet, especially one with zero net emissions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, do you think we should lobby to get Taylor a dragon egg to see if she becomes a rider and save the planet, maybe?
I don't know. That's too much power for one person.
I don't think so. If anyone should wield it on this mortal coil,
my
Dane, it should be Taylor Swift.
I'm moving right along. This small, strange little chapter ends as they land, talk with Katrina, who's looking pretty pregnant at this point, and sit down to have some food. Yep. It's meat, by the way. It's a real balance for our main character here. I mean, is he vegan still?
No, I think we can firmly, unless all of this is just him being like, well, out of necessity, I had to. It was a war. I wasn't going to go dig a bunch of root vegetables and painstakingly prepare a potato galette. It would be too hard.
I only stopped being a vegan for the war.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I guess
see.
we'll have to wait to see if he survives the war and becomes a vegan again.
I can't wait.
TBD. It does take us to chapter 6, Memories of the Dead. We kick off this chapter reminiscing on our favorite dead dad, Brom.
Brom.
Yes, Aragon is having one of his waking dreams, replaying his memory of Brom's message to him.
Oh, nice.
I know. Specifically the part about Galbatorix being a crazy old fucker whose weaknesses they can totally find and exploit. So, Brom's hopeful part of his last video.
It's like a motivational YouTube clip he keeps playing over and over.
Literally. And he also plays a final heart-wrenching blessing and declaration of love that Brom left for him in the video. Can we just take a minute to miss Brom?
I miss Brom.
That regular old storyteller really had it all.
I mean, just to be a decent dad in the end.
I know. It was beautiful. But Aragon wakes from this reverie in his tent and proceeds to ask Saphira why Brom wouldn't have told them that teeny little family secret where Aragon has a half-brother. So he's waking up, and obviously he loves to think about Brom, but he's a little well, what the fuck? Saphira, though, seems to think it was a time constraint problem, which does seem a little funny to me.
I mean, she's probably right. I think Ormus does talk about this. I think Ormus is just I don't think he thought he had time. He was just waiting.
Well, I think
stress going on.
Yeah, I guess
you didn't know how you'd react.
Yeah, I think the problem is when he left that last video, why wouldn't he have mentioned Murtagh in there? Is what Aragon's thinking.
Yes.
His mindset is why wasn't it on the tapes, Brom?
Well, that was a Hail Mary, right? That
Yeah.
was a if I die. I don't think he was planning on dying.
It really sounded like it.
I mean,
but ultimately, Saphira tells Aragon not to dwell on it. Which,
she's don't
classic.
think about it.
Yeah. And just trust Brom, which is good advice. I think she's You can trust him. He's a good dad.
You know when you have a problem and your friend's like, why are you thinking about that?
Yeah.
Just stop it.
Think less about it. I mean, for Aragon, for how many times over this series, he's like, I'll deal with that later. Yeah. I think it's good advice, genuinely. And she gets him. So
she's like, why'd you start thinking, man? Stop it.
Don't do that. It was better before. So Aragon does look on the bright side that at least he finally knows his dad and it isn't fucking Morzan.
Yeah, that's nice.
And he turns his thoughts instead to the cheery realization of just how worn and ragged the Varden will be when they confront a fresh and rested gal. So he's kind of just like getting from dead dad memories, reminiscing to like, this whole war situation is kind of bad, right?
It's a bad situation, yeah.
Yes, but he does, I think maybe on Saphira's advice, decide not to think about it too much.
Classic.
Instead, he and Saphira decide to see if Glader might be ready for a chat.
Oh, good.
He's been in his Eldenari this whole time.
Okay.
So they jointly reach out to make contact with the Eldenari, but Glader does not acknowledge them, and they end up having to disconnect themselves from what is, quote, the crushing weight of Glader's misery. Just like, cheer up, bud. You're being kind of a downer. Just like, don't think about it so much. I have advice for Glader.
Yeah. You're kind of ruining the vibe, dude.
Yes, dude. But who else but Arya takes this opportunity to come a knocking? So Aragon is snapped out of his despondency by, of course, fixating on how hot she looks and how good she smells. So, like, it does cheer him up. Arya also decides to take a crack at the Eldenari, and she wonders if they need to help Glader, like, walk himself back from the brink of insanity, which I think makes a lot of sense, but the whole thing is just looking pretty bleak. She's like, I don't think he's going to come out of this on his own. I think we might need to do some stuff to help him like process and grieve. And it's like, are y'all licensed therapists?
Well, also it's like, that is the problem, Arya. Like, how do we fix this?
Yes, I think it's like, I think we might need to help. And it's like, well, how?
Well, any suggestions?
Yeah. But they changed the subject, if not the tone necessarily, by talking about the Doth Dart and agreeing to keep it hidden in Arya's tent for now. So it's like still a little bleak, a little grim, but
not a fun chat. Yes.
No, and just when Aragon is about to do the worst possible thing by declaring his love to Arya again, it's like on the tip of his tongue, he's about to say it, Horst's family comes through in the clutch to save him from that fate because they don't ever miss.
Yeah, they're the best family.
Yes, Albrecht shows up to summon Aragon to keep
that guy.
Yes, part of the beautiful, wonderful Horst family in which not a member lacks.
I mean, Albrecht's bottom tier of the Horst family.
You're the worst. Your hatred for Albrecht knows no bounds.
I wouldn't say it's hate, it's indifference. You know what I mean?
Worse. Sad. Anyway, they want Aragon to keep his healing magic on standby for Elaine, who has finally gone into labor. Remember, she was getting like hugely pregnant on the march in the soldier camp.
Not to be rude about it. She was just getting pregnant. She was hugely pregnant.
I mean, like late stage pregnant. Like,
okay, yeah, I get what you're saying.
I'm like, what's a better peak descriptor?
She was getting enormously pregnant.
Sorry, ever more increasingly pregnant. So the little chapter ends with Arya accompanying Aragon to the birthing tent because it sounds like she actually does have a little midwife experience under her belt.
Why not?
I mean,
with everything else,
she's been alive 100 years. She's probably seen a couple babies born, but like literally only 2 because the elves don't have kids a lot.
Yeah, I was
1 or 2 babies.
Well, this gets even crazier. In chapter 7, what is a man?
What is a man? Be a man.
Be a man. I ask myself this every day. What is a man in the mirror? Anyway.
Oh, I thought you asked Cooper, your trainer.
Oh, yeah.
Every morning.
Oh, no. Shout out to Cooper, bud. He listens to this.
Amazing.
Yeah. We come back to Roran here. He's walking in mud on his way back to his little tent with Katrina. He's exhausted, having overseen the conquering of a specific quadrant of Bellatona.
With all the soldiers still like aftermath fighting.
Yeah, this is going to take forever. Sometimes this takes months. I mean, this is not a good thing in the real world. Anyway, basically the people are not submitting to Varden freedom peaceably.
What the hell?
It sounds like
they've brought justice. They've brought liberation to this city that was probably fine before.
This is the true edge of justice.
Yes.
It sounds like a tough and gross business as the Imperial soldiers have really dug into the city, and Roran reflects that 3 of his men have died horribly. But Roran himself, always a pro, decides that he'd be just as intractable as the Imperial citizens in this situation.
Okay.
And liberation is tough, Roran. Freedom needs to be forced down their fucking throats.
This is America.
Yeah.
So true.
Totally an American vibe, even written.
So
it's so
true.
funny. He and Katrina embrace when he returns, and there's a lot of love here. I really like them. They always are just good to me. I think unlike most of the romances and even familial relationships in this series, this is really shaping up to be the best one.
I think so.
The
They're
more,
just like healthy, supportive. Because a lot of the things are like nice or they're fun, like Roran and Aragon, but there's always like an undertone of like things are tough for them. They're so different. There's so much contrast there still that like this is just like they're on the same page. They're like
they get each other.
Yeah.
They step up when the other person needs it. It's really nice.
Supportive, securely attached relationship.
Yeah.
And they've been through trauma, so that's hard.
A lot of trauma. Yeah, she was kidnapped.
Yeah, dude.
This chapter is filled mostly with Roran ruminating on his love for his unborn child and his fear about the war not ending soon enough.
Yeah.
And that just got me. The conversation does steer to something very interesting. Roran says that most of the Varden soldiers will not attack the Empire soldiers when they are in pitched battle. That they don't all like want to look men in the face and kill them. And it's something Roran says that Aragon doesn't notice, as he's always in the front leading charges.
Right. I thought that was an interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And he says that what complicates this is the Imperial soldiers have to fight when ordered.
Yes.
Because there's the whole, like, they're sworn to do
They're
what they're
magically
told.
compelled to do so.
Yeah, which is complicating and making this worse.
Yeah.
Katrina replies that she's glad he can kill people, which sounds right for Sloane's daughter and the strong Hammer's childhood sweetheart.
This is what I'm saying. They get each other.
It's such a weird conversation because she's just like, I'm glad you can murder.
Well, I think, to be honest, I think she sees what he needs and is happy to give it to him. And like, really does feel that way. I think she's like, I'm proud of you for doing what needs to be done, for like standing up for what you believe
Taking
and
care
like
of
doing the
business.
hard things.
Yeah. And he needs to hear that. You don't want to hear you're a monster. I think you're right.
Yes.
Anyway, Roran goes into how troubled he is because when he was almost crushed under the wall, he gave up right before he thought he was going to die, something he's never done and clearly something that he does not want to feel.
Yeah.
He cries with Katrina, says he can't go on like this. And it seems like the war has really gotten to Roran. And it makes me think of the last chapter of the last book when Aragon remarks that Roran looks haunted and gaunt.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's just what his dad looks like. So I don't know.
I think that's just him aging, you know? He's bound to turn into Garrow eventually.
R.I.P. Garrow. Roran is, in his seriousness, being totally broken down
this is
here
sad.
by all the horrible things.
Get it together, Dane. A
Sorry.
man is depressed.
And that he has to do as like a total like regular guy without any magic, without having a dragon. He's not an elf. Katrina points out that since there was nothing he could do to stop the wall from coming down, he was wise for letting go and accepting death. And that's not weakness. And if it would be weak if he would have like done something like
if he could have
done something and didn't, that would be weak. And this seems to make Roran feel really better.
She don't miss Dane.
Yeah, she's great. Roran then tries to take over the washing for Katrina because she's having trouble with the chore. She's very bothered that it's not man's work. Notably, she's a woman. And the soldiers, who we'll see, will talk about Roran.
Yeah.
And Roran finally wins this, and it's the best.
Yes, we love to see a domestically contributing king. I'm telling you, this relationship is so aspirational.
It's
They're
really
just
good.
so nice. Like every new thing I feel like we learn about them, we see them like work together. And,
He's like,
it's the
here, I'll
best.
help you. You just helped me. I'll help you.
Yeah.
And this chapter ends in the way the last one did, with Elaine going into labor and Baldur fetching Katrina and Roran. Baldur, our best boy. Anyway, your turn.
I mean, I will admit this is just for you, Dane, because I also see what you need, and I
Come
will.
on.
Baldur is better than Albrecht, but I like them both, and I think they are both kind and like productive, good characters.
All right, Kevin, just cut it, loop it. I want Baldur is the best on repeat.
That does take us to chapter 8, The Price of Power. We'll have to wait a little longer to see Allegazia's crack team of OBGYNs, though, because this chapter starts with Niswata and her POV. She's just now removing her bandages from the trial of the long knives, which really puts like the time since the middle of Eldest into perspective here. Like those scars are still healing. So we have been on like a speed run ever since then. Yeah. She thinks briefly about some of the wandering tribe's other customs, like as she's looking at her scars. And I could have used an entire chapter about all these things. They sound so interesting.
I wish we got more. I would have loved to have done a deep dive on him. But
Yes.
we just don't get enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Niswata is more concerned for the moment with whether the scars are detracting at all from her hotness.
Classic.
I'm like, good for her. She is hot. I'm glad she knows it. So she asks Oren to see if she's still like, am I still looking fine? And his answer is not great, Dane. He tells her scars are gross. And he does a little side of slut shaming about her exposed forearms.
Well, I mean, you can't expose your forearms.
So skanky.
It's a skanky move.
Dude, but Queen President is not here to be told what to do by any man. So she gives Oren the perfect brush off. And I really need some pointers from Niswata on the whole, like, no is a complete sentence vibe that she's giving off here. She's a fucking icon.
To Oren's defense, I don't know why I'm defending him. Never mind.
No.
He's a jerk.
I'm proud of you. No, that sucked. It was a bad take.
He's a jerk.
Yeah, and she's just like, fuck you, I'll do what I want.
So what is our Queen President? She's hot, dude.
Yes. And then we do spend, speaking of Oren being kind of a dick, in this chapter, actually, we get some of Niswata's insight on Oren. And it seems like she's thinking what we're thinking, that war is turning him into a huge asshole. Yeah. And I do like the way she realizes that she actually misses kooky mad scientist Oren. And I think this turn was maybe feeling a little out of character. It's now reading like the toll of war has turned him into this like grim, power hungry guy, because we're getting characters like Niswata reflecting back on it over time.
I think this is going to be a refrain for me the whole season of this book. I just wish we had more. I think you're right. I think it makes sense. I just wish we had more time. I guess
he's like so tertiary, and it's hard because he is important in the political landscape.
Well, that's what I mean.
Like,
I would love a larger, complicated political situation, more chapters from his point of view. I think that could have really fleshed this out. But
totally.
I do think this makes sense.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm like, with so much else going on, and like this isn't necessarily a Game of Thronesy kind of book.
I want
like
17 books. I want grimdark. I want them all to be 800 pages.
You do want that. That's correct. More Allegazia.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I'm going to start calling him Dark Oren. He's got some demands for Niswata at this meeting they're having, and he immediately turns the conversation to the PR nightmare that the Urgles are causing as the war progresses now through the Empire.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about how all the Imperial citizens have been conditioned to think about the Urgles for generations. So like this is a really tough look for them. Niswata hopes that fighting with the Urgles will spare more lives than it costs at the end of the day. And she thinks this is the only way actually to keep the Urgles in check if they do beat Gal and start a new empire. So that pragmatism makes sense here, but I think she acknowledges that like, it's not great. It's tough.
I think this is one of those things where I think she culturally understands the Urgles a lot better than Oren.
Yeah.
This army is currently giving them honor.
Yes.
Currently giving them feats of contest.
Yeah.
So like this is going to make, if they can win, right? Which is a long shot, right? It's going to make everything down the line much easier because there's a lot of war here.
Yes.
So I think in the long term she's right.
And I think when you look at the landscape of this war, had they left the Urgles out, the Urgles come to them, want an alliance, and they're like, no, we're good, thanks.
Yeah.
If they win, now they just have absolutely guaranteed an enemy
who will
on their fringes instead of like maybe an ally they could at least try to work with.
Well,
like they might start to get somewhere here.
And an enemy that you've created even deeper animosity and hate with.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You wouldn't even take them as allies. That's a real tough.
Yeah.
It's a real tough look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Dark Oren continues to while out here, insisting they break the alliance in the middle of this war. And maybe send Aragon and Saphira to just like do a genocide of the Urgles while they're at it.
I didn't like any of this.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Niswata is not having this, thanks Sindri, and she shuts him down hard again, reminding him that their burden as leaders is to be better than normal people.
Yeah.
And she tactfully keeps this two-person war council moving. She's like, you should not be such a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Let's move along.
Hard agree.
They're trying to puzzle out how they're supposed to keep up on guarding all those magic oath-bound POWs you were talking about.
Yeah.
Every city, they're getting more and more, and it's very, very difficult, obviously, to keep people who have promised to oppose the Varden in any sort of check. They don't have the bulk of the Dwarven army back with them yet after Oryx's election, and they're going to be too strapped for soldiers and supplies very, very soon. And in like a teeny tiny throwaway line, we do find out that it's been 2 months since Oryx was crowned and the dwarves marched from Farthendor. So we do have a little timeline check in this chapter.
Which means it's only been like 6 months since the end of like Eldest.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is
if
wild.
that.
Well, because it was like a 3-month situation.
Oh, when he was in Ellesmere.
When he was in Ellesmere. Well, when he went.
Oh, sorry.
When he went to Ulrich, Ellesmere, the time before that, there was a time delay, I think, in the beginning.
See, I thought all of that was like a couple weeks because remember, Neswata would not spare him for elections.
It's like a month. Yeah, the timing on this book is weird. I
Yeah.
will say that. It's a little too, it's really quick.
I think from that battle by the Giet River at the beginning of Brissinger.
Yeah.
To
Write us an email. If you know,
timeline check us.
Yeah, timeline
Yeah,
check
I
us.
think from Giet River to Feinster is only like a month.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's too short.
Yes. So they decide their only option is to keep on keeping on towards Drosleona, hoping for a magical solution to their magical problem. And Queen President has some chilling thoughts about mass murdering POWs and whether or not she has any limit on what she'll consider doing to beat Gal.
Yeah. It's a little dark. This chapter's a little dark.
Yeah. So Oren might not be the only dark one in the room, I think.
No.
Everybody is shifting a little.
We just like Nasawata better.
Yes,
I think
of course.
ultimately.
Well, and coming from her, I think Oren is pushing for this stuff. He
Right.
wants to take action already on these like war crimes. She's like, would a war crime be easier than what I'm doing right now? Would a war crime save my people?
Yes.
And so I feel like we do know for Naswata that there's that like bare minimum good intention that she like wants to topple the genociding tyrant.
Yeah.
And she wants to protect her people to whatever degree she can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me, there's a old, like a wise, like I think it's just like this old piece of wisdom that's like the most evil person in the room is the person who believes without absolute certainty that they're the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so true.
I feel like there's a little bit of that with Nasawata here. I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see. We'll see.
There's a tinge of that for
Yeah.
sure. But I guess Oren would be the one who like
Yeah,
believes wholeheartedly.
He believes in
At least
genocide.
Naswata, maybe that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
like we trust Naswata at least a little more because she's questioning.
Yeah,
always.
she's asking questions.
Yes.
She's asking questions.
I'm just asking questions, man. They do talk a little bit about how worried they still are that Gal could single-handedly end this war at truly any minute. And
Yeah.
like, honestly, same guys. But Naswata mentions the discovery of the Dothdar as some small solace here. And the chapter ends with her giving some truly grim and stoic advice. There's nothing the two of them can do to improve any of the myriad problems the army faces. So best not to worry about it. Buck up, Dark Oren.
Hey, just don't think about it.
Yeah, it's a theme.
It's a theme of this.
It's not the theme of this.
Yeah.
Spoiler
Sorry,
alert.
analysis spoiler. Chapter 9, rudely into the light. We're back with Aragon and Elaine is giving birth.
Yes.
The whole crew is here. Baldur, Horst, the other one, Saphira, Katrina, Roran, Arya, and the women of Carvajal.
I think it is important to note, like, Albrecht and Baldur are described in this scene as sitting on their hams, shredding grass with their thick fingers. I just love it that they're thick boys.
I do too. It's,
Beefy.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Baldur is perfect. Anyway,
Albrecht is also really, really good.
he's cool, I guess.
Super good.
You know, like when you're like you wanted like Vans, but your mom bought you like Airwalks. Remember that time period?
No.
That's what Airwalks. That's what it's basically Albrecht's Airwalks is what I'm saying. Anyway, here we go.
He's just a hair short of perfect, Dane, and that's still really, really good.
It's been hours since her labor started, and some of the villagers have already written Elaine off as dead because it isn't going well.
Yeah, it's scary.
Even worse, Arya, the person with the knowledge to most likely help Elaine,
Mm-hmm.
seems to be distrusted by the villagers because she's an elf.
Oh.
Which is a really interesting
Yeah.
fact. I think this is the first time we've heard of this prejudice,
Yeah.
but it makes sense to me. The only humans we've really seen have mingled a lot with the elves. We have
Yeah.
Nasawata, Angela, and Brahm. Most others have little or no contact with
So
elves.
true.
So there's a lot of mythology and
Yeah.
like, myth around them, which I think is kind of cool. Arya comes out with a serious demeanor and speaks, which is just her normal demeanor, and speaks with another
You
elf
mean not
woman.
lighthearted, jokey Arya that we've all come to know and love over the course of 3 books, Dane?
She's not throwing out puns right
Weird.
now. Yeah. Anyway, Aragon goes to her to check in, and she gives him the rundown. She could have helped this whole thing go faster. She instantly made the baby come out and safe if she wanted to.
Oh.
But it turns out the villagers are,
Yeah.
not only afraid of the magic, they don't want tricksy elven ways getting involved.
Ooh.
She's been able to do some small spells to help,
Okay.
but only because Katrina like super went to bat for her. Aragon is obviously furious, but this makes a lot of sense to me actually, and I think of it just like the medical field now with people and who we trust with our health.
Yeah.
Let alone like alien beings with like mind magic. Like some people are weird about like going to the doctor and which doctor they believe and all that stuff. So it makes sense that you'd be like, I don't know if this like other creature, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, Arya is really interesting here as Aragon wants to like march in and make everyone do the right thing and like let Arya use her magic. And she tells him that would make everything worse.
Yeah.
And all the women of the village angry and shame Gertrude, their healer. So it's incredibly empathetic and really the first I can think of that we've seen of Arya being like nice to people other than elves or like Varden higher ups. You know what I mean?
How often have we seen Arya interact with anyone other than elves or Varden higher ups?
I'm just saying, it's a super good look for Arya.
Yeah.
Aragon, of course, tells her to save Elaine and the baby at all costs if she needs, but otherwise okay. She then tells him instantly, duh, which kind of ruined the whole nice moment, but here we are with Arya. Aragon spends the rest of the time just sitting with the men until Elaine screams one final time and a baby wails. It isn't all joyous and happy for long, as instantly the women in the tent start to scream and cry, and either something is wrong or the customs of Carvajalas are very different.
It's a really odd reaction to birth, but if this is your thing, this is your thing.
Yeah, Arya runs out and asks Aragon to come to the baby tent with her right away.
Yeah.
And when Baldur, like fearing his mother's like died, reaches out because Arya's like turned around to like grab her to see what's happened, she puts his arm in a pin. So, you know, never change, Arya. Anyway, turns out
that's just muscle memory, Dane.
Whatever. She could do anything. You'd be like, I don't know. He was looked at her wrong.
They wart their way through a city like 6 hours ago.
Turns out Elaine's baby girl, it's a girl, everybody, has a cat lip, or as we know it more commonly here in the real world, a cleft lip.
Okay.
Aragon explains to us, the readers, that this is really bad for two reasons in Alagasia. The first being that the baby is unlikely to live, as most parents have trouble feeding the baby with a cleft lip. And two, that their life would be bad, as they'd be shunned from normal society, they'd have trouble getting married, and that it would just have been better if she had not been born or like died stillborn.
Damn, you gotta love that super bleak, like old-timey pragmatism.
Yeah.
Always hits.
It's pretty...
Makes us feel bad.
Yeah, it feels bad. Arya says that Aragon has to be the one to heal it, because the wary villagers would say that Arya like replaced the baby with like a changeling, which is apparently a known myth in this world. Arya says she like will, if he will not do it, but she would rather that he does it for the baby's sake. Arya's really intense because of elves and babies and stuff. Yeah, because they don't have many. She's like, this is a gift from, you know, whatever.
From a god we don't believe in.
Yeah, and if we're being honest, she's already intense already, so this is just adding a level of like intensity to her. Aragon says he'll do it and goes into the tent to talk to Horst and Elaine and the village women, and this scene is described just so yucky. It's one of the more yucky, it's a horror show in this tent. Yeah. I have a child. I was there with my wife the whole time, and the way this is described is on a whole other level. Yeah. This is crazy. Yeah. I don't want medieval birthing room. No. Sounds disgusting.
We like... Yeah, modern medicine.
Yeah. Horst gives Aragon the green light, so he takes the little baby girl with Gertrude falling to make sure the baby isn't stolen by an elf on the way. Okay. Aragon gets to his tent, and I love this moment. Elva has shown up like across from his tent, and I imagine she's giving him the like watching 2-finger eye thing, like I'm watching you, and like don't fuck 100%. With this baby, dude.
I mean, she's got a point.
Which closes the chapter out. Aragon deciding he fears Elva and that that he can't fuck this was the up. Elva will fuck with him.
What do you think she would do to him?
I don't know.
If he ruins another baby's life.
I think she'd make it her life mission to make his life miserable.
I think so too. I don't think she'd kill him.
No. I think
she would know it would be worse to make every waking moment a torment for him.
Unlike like most people where we have to all kind of like use our empathy, Elva knows that like internal conflict is probably the worst pain. Yeah. Right? So I bet she was like, yeah, I'll just make him suffer. Yep. But one baby in his hands and another witch baby giving him the evil eye. It was a fun ending to the chapter.
Yeah, that chapter was sad, dude.
Yeah, it's a weird chapter.
That does take us to chapter 10, the last one of this episode, a Cradle song. We pick back up with Aragon in his tent, getting ready for his baby magic redemption arc, hopefully. And as he's transferring the little girl around the tent, I love the description of him moving her, quote, as carefully as if she were made of glass.
That's nice.
And I'm trying to imagine, like, I wonder if Aragon has a ton of experience with like newborn babies, but this feels very realistic for like someone's first time being in charge of a brand new infant. You're like, I barely want to touch it. I don't want to breathe wrong around this baby. You're so scared.
That first time spooky.
Yes. Gertrude is spooked also here, I think, by Aragon's whole vibe and like everything about him.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad.
Yes, she says that she doesn't know him at all anymore, which is really heartbreaking, I think, and shows the depth of the chasm between who Aragon is now and who he was when he left Carvajal.
And he is startling. Not only does he just looks different.
Yeah.
He's an important figure. He is wearing all this weird, he's wearing like Dwarven gear and like, he must just look crazy.
Well, and I have to imagine on top of all of that for Gertrude, like maybe the people from Carvajal have started to get used to like the appearance and that kind of stuff with Aragon. But like for people like Gertrude who haven't been like close to him for extended periods of time at this point, you have to imagine just like it would almost be more jarring when you've accepted part of the change and then you start to see every single thing he does is so alien to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Well,
you're
not
just
to
like,
mention-
oh, wow, this is not any of our customs. Like these aren't anything I've ever seen another person do, really.
Right. And not to mention the like aura he probably has after stub time.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot more chill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So Aragon and Saphira consult extensively about which spells they're going to use and how to word them, to the point that Gertrude busts out her knitting needles just to pass the time. She's like, okay, well, if you're all going to
Guess I'm bored. I might as well.
blah, 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 blah. No. I can't help remembering like that Aragon took all of 10 minutes to take the measure of a grown man's soul and serve him life-altering justice with Sloane. But this healing spell takes 3 times the consideration from him. I guess this is just a good illustration of how petrified he is of fucking this up.
I mean, he did also fuck up one baby, so this might be a touchy subject. Like, right?
For sure. Yeah,
Like-
having just seen Elva, he's like, absolutely not that. And generous read, he's grown since what he did to Sloane.
Yeah, he's more different.
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about how different he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he finally settles on what the right spells are, he takes a cue from what he knows about the elves and decides that he's going to need to sing the magic to a melody the way they do when they like grow their houses.
Nothing
and,
like an impromptu
plants.
song. You know?
I mean, they love to see it. Do you think he's the guy around the fire just strumming his acoustic guitar?
And here's Wonderwall.
Well, not Wonderwall. He ends up digging deep into his subconscious to remember like a beautiful, soothing lullaby the women of Carvajal would sing. And that was so poignant to me. And the scene where he starts singing as the baby girl like fidgets gently in her sleep is really beautiful, actually, especially when you think like Aragon's own mother died giving birth to him. So like having that like connection with like a woman's lullaby feels like very poignant for this character, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he works slowly and carefully from the root of the cleft palate back in her mouth out to the surface of her face. And after a while, Saphira starts to hum along with him. And eventually the skin of the girl's lip knits back together. And Saphira chimes in with some truly solid advice about perfectionism that I could really, really use most of the time. That, you know, she's like, the work is done. Like continuing to tweak it is only going to make things worse. Like you've done all you can do. So Aragon decides that that's it for him. That's a wrap. And the lullaby fades into silence. And when it's over, it's dawn. And Aragon and Saphira are fucking exhausted. It's been a day. But before he brings the baby out of the tent, Aragon says, this was kind of wild to me, an ancient language benediction over the girl, kind of not to be believed. He says
He almost did it. He almost got out of there.
He thinks it's not actually a spell, and I am really trusting that he's learned his lesson because that scared the shit out of me when I read it, to be honest.
It's like, oh, come on, man. You were so close.
Yes. The classic Aragon is not dwelling on it, so I guess I won't either. And he brings the little girl out to Horst in the crowd of Carvajalers, and the Smith's reaction is just perfect and lovely. He says they'll name the baby Hope. He's like so grateful to Aragon. And the villagers and the waiting elves come by to see and greet Hope in an informal little procession, which I thought was nice.
Yeah.
And last to check Aragon's work, of course, is Elva. She has a black lace veil over her face, which is like super goth.
What a
the
choice.
Aesthetics there are kind of cool. I'm
I
not going to lie.
like it.
Yeah. So Aragon can't tell what she thinks of Hope because he can't see her face. But in peak creepy witch baby form, Elva just runs off and gives Aragon like the sup girl nod as she's leaving. And I think we're supposed to read that as approval. The way it's written, I think she's like, You did good.
Yeah, she gave
Grudging approval.
She gives him the nod. You know what I mean?
Yes. So Arya and the elves also give Aragorn really high praise for this, but notably, Aragorn only gives a shit that Arya gave him the gold star. Tracks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Super on brand.
That makes sense.
So this chapter ends with Aragorn and Saphira finally getting some rest after the battle and the birth and the baby surgery, and they fucking deserve it,
yes.
I think. I love the last little detail, though, in this chapter enough to end this episode's summaries with it. Aragorn's elven trance waking dreams are underscored throughout this next sleep by that old half remembered lullaby, which kind of provides a perfect segue, I think, to something I want to talk about in the first analysis segment of Inheritance Dane.
Oh, it's analysis time.
Yes.
It's time for analysis.
So I talked a bit last season about the cold openings throughout this series. And like you said, from that first chapter, Dane, this one fucking slaps.
Yeah.
And I think starting with the fast-paced action really separates this section in a lot of ways into two distinct halves in terms of overarching themes and ideas. So we'll start chronologically. First up, the pitched battle and high-stakes diplomacy that's happening with new allies and Orin and Neswata fighting. They really feel like a level up to start this book in so many ways. I wouldn't necessarily call it a theme. I do think the writing, though, really effectively shows us the passage of time and how far our characters have come just in a lot of little ways throughout, which is really what you want in a fundamentally coming-of-age saga. And so the epic, cinematic tone of the battle, like we said, there are so many scenes in there where it's Avengers assemble.
So cool.
Yes, it really had me thinking about the way the first book cold opened on a much shorter battle scene. It was much smaller in scale than what we're seeing now. I took a look back at what I wrote up for that very first analysis section.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did.
We're all taking a walk through memory lane.
I know. If the theme back then in those first few chapters was changing worlds, this section is making it clear we are not in Carvajal anymore. The world has changed, and now we're reading the clashing of full armies, gritty urban warfare, like you've been talking about, feats of strength and ferocity and magic. Rather than, I think then, it was one shade versus a small contingent of elves in one small forest battle, you know? And hot on the heels of all of that, we have these interspecies alliances and growing resentments that threaten the entire rebellion. It just all feels very different than a fight with the butcher and your cousin going to the next town over for an apprenticeship at the mill.
Yeah, we're definitely not in Carvajal anymore.
Yes. Even small choices in the writing here, like having Aragorn and Roran fight their way through the city side by side, bantering the whole way, I think it infuses these first chapters with a sense of fun and camaraderie that really puts me as a reader in the headspace to realize how much both Aragorn and Roran have changed in some of the same ways, but also obviously some very different ways.
Yes.
Which I think rather nicely tees up the second half of this section we covered, the one that very appropriately starts with the chapter Memories of the Dead. And I think here we clearly get a theme that takes the changed world setup from the earlier chapters and focuses in on our characters reminiscing. And as much as these characters sometimes try to move on from their problems too quickly, we make fun of them. I like the idea of looking back and reminiscing as one of the opening ideas for the final installment of a series. It feels like a good way to ground us in where we've been before we embark on the last leg of our journey, basically. Yeah. And in the way Christopher Paolini so often does, this rumination on the past affects all of our primary players in this section. We have Aragorn flashing back to Brom and his real dad's final message before reaching out to Glader, Roran and Katrina growing closer by reminiscing over the things they've faced and processing those things together, and Neswata hardening her resolve to do what must be done by reminiscing on the trial of the Long Knives and Orin's drastic shift in character. So we do have a lot of flashbacks.
They are thinking about it.
Yes, even as much as they're let's keep it moving. And all of this reminiscing really reaches its pinnacle in the last chapter, where Aragorn uses the half-remembered scraps of a lullaby to guide the magic that heals hope. It was really the prose through that whole final chapter that made this theme so clear to me. The writing, as all of our characters work through their memories in this section, has a very dreamy, poetic tone to it in everybody's flashbacks. And I think that shines through most in the jump from sentimentality into a trance-like state for Aragorn and back again to sentimentality that we see in the chapter A Cradle Song. And I think that all just struck me it hit me in the feels so hard that I was this has got to be the theme. This is some of Christopher Paolini's really good, emotionally tugging work, you know?
Yes.
Which leaves me with a final thought that these chapters where we've seen a huge change followed by our characters reminiscing on the past seems like a clear signal to us as readers that the Aragon who's setting out to wrap up this journey does not feel like the bean farmer who started it. We see this really on the nose by how much has changed, like we talked about, in the interactions with the Carvahalers. And I'm interested to see where this goes as Aragon really starts to internalize it all himself. You know, I think this is finally where we're starting to get him looking back and saying, oh, everybody feels so different to me. It's hard to be around some of these people. Because in Brissinger, they all had their like reunion surprise party. It was nice. It was heartwarming. And now he's starting to feel that distance. Yeah. And I'm interested to see where that realization and like coming to terms with that takes him in this story.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on this analysis because I do think this comes through when you're reading it. It makes it feel very like, oh, is it over? Like, you know, but it's the first few chapters.
Yeah. So I think it'll be fun to see how much these characters start changing deeply, Dane, to their cores.
Oh, deeply.
Deep down.
Well, let's get deep then. Let's take it to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Deep dive. For this week's deep dive, I want to dig into the new magic item we got in this section, the Doth Darts. Yes. And man, are these things freaking powerful.
Terrifying. I mean, we both thought Saphira died in the opening of this book.
Wild. 3 feet, everybody. 3 feet inside of her.
Too many feet.
We know there were 12 of them, all named after the most beautiful flowers.
Amazing.
And thought to be lost long ago.
That's elven as hell, but it just could not be more elven.
We're going to name them after flowers.
Yeah.
Anyway, we also know that their construction method, even what they're made of, is also long forgotten. The elves first made them to kill dragons during the war between their race, which would make them 14 years older than the Order of the Riders.
Oh,
so we're talking like at least like 2,709 years old.
Not that anyone's counting.
Not that I'm
very specifically.
Nope, not here in the deep dive. They are.
You get them, Dane. Good for you. I'm like, I would have been like over 2,000.
I can't wait.
And that's why I do the glossy analysis section.
I can't wait for the email that's like, actually.
Yes, please, somebody actually us.
They are super special for two reasons, and both are really, really important to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Because this is why they're such a big deal. First, the Doth Dart allow the wielder to be immune to magical harm. This is, of course, like to protect the person trying to kill a freaking dragon from any random and super powerful dragon magic done in that heat of the battle.
Smart.
Second, and more importantly, the Doth Dart can break through any ward or magical defense. That is why we can assume Gal probably didn't know this one even was around, because it might be the only weapon in Alagasia that's going to be able to actually hurt him or Shuriken.
That makes so much sense. And I was thinking, just as you were saying that, like, I feel like this is another one of those small ways we've seen just a couple times that, like, Galbatorix does not know sometimes what his underlings are up to. Like, there are very, very minor hairline cracks in like the vice-like grip he holds over the empire.
I mean, it comes through with almost every like leader we've come to. Or like, I think it's a theme, right?
Yeah, he's super interesting.
He is apparently not fun to work for. Maybe someone to keep secrets from.
Yeah,
I don't know. He sounds like a chill guy. Anyway,
the just and rightful ruler of Alagasia, Dane.
I'm just saying a lot of this is still hearsay. That's all I'm saying. Other than that, we really don't know a whole lot about these magic items. This thing is an uber weapon from the time when the world was still wild and dragon riders didn't even exist.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty important thing for historical reasons. Probably needs to be in a museum.
Okay, Indiana Jones. This is an artifact. It belongs in a museum.
It's kind of outside of the magic system. Also, the name, it's for sure just Death Dart.
Yeah.
Paolini knows this.
Oh.
He knows what's going on here.
Amazing.
I'll put a link in the show notes where Paolini confirms in a tweet that's what this name is. I love him for this. Yeah, I like that these are just like, they're darts of death.
I wonder if we're supposed to pronounce it Doth Dart.
Doth Dart.
Like it's written.
Dude, it's lucky that Aragon's name was not like hero protagonist, but just dragon with an E. It's very close.
But no, we got Aragon.
I love Paolini for that. He's like, it's Death Dart. We all know what these are.
He's so for real with that one. Good for him.
On the negative side, I'm not the largest fan of this. While I find it super interesting, I would have liked to see some foreshadowing or prior knowledge about these items, as they kind of break the conventions of our magic system for like reasons. Even if we just had more information about how they worked and how they fit within the existing rules of our hard magic system, might have helped for me. Throughout the series, each book seems to introduce something that somewhat diminishes the integrity of the hard magic system.
Yeah.
We've already discussed the challenges with introducing something like the Eldenarian Brisingar and making it possible to draw magic from external sources.
Okay.
It's a little broken.
Yeah.
We also have the addition of wards and eldest and talked about how that changed some of the vibes in the first book. If they were going to be introduced, that should have been handled differently in the front end.
Yeah.
So this is another thing that is the exception to the rule. And while cool and fun, I do think it undermines the magic system a tad. Additionally, I think it diminishes the significance of the writer's blades, the ones we've spent so much time learning about. And I don't think this is Paolini's intention. So
No.
So for a positive, I do like good monster killing tools.
Yes.
This is something that comes up a lot in literature. We hear about this all the time in pop culture even. You know,
Okay.
the salt to keep demons away, the silver
yeah.
to kill werewolves, the stakes for wood, or holy water to harm vampires.
Yeah.
The water to change a
May
gremlin.
the power of Christ compel you.
Exactly. But this is also a thing in myths. I believe there's a Hindi monster that has a very specific instructions on how they die, like a bunch of them.
Okay.
There's a Russian myth I know about a monster that can only be killed with a stab through the heart.
Okay.
You got gorgons that have to
It's
be...
not in Mother Russia, Monster Stab You. Or...
Well, mostly that. You have gorgons who, he had to fight blind
Right.
and so on.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have a mythological killing tool specifically for the act of killing a dragon.
Yeah.
It seems fitting to have one because of for any non-writer.
Yeah.
Even for the elves. I would think killing a dragon would be almost impossible one-on-one, or even as we've learned, 20-on-1.
yeah.
So
I guess it does make a certain sort of sense then that it couldn't necessarily just be the rider's blades that were capable of slaying dragons. That
Yeah.
would be a hard turn for
I think-
those to have that kind of power.
I think the
know?
more defense and explanation you need for
Yeah.
a thing ends up being the fact that we even have to engage in it, right, is you don't want that to even come up.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I totally do. But also, if you've made the uber weapon for 3 books, it's just a bummer to kind of undercut that and be like, well, actually, there's an ancient thing that's even better. And I don't know. For me, not my thing. And I know a lot of people love this hard magic system.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beloved. I also love it. So
Yeah.
anything that maybe starts to
anything that infringes on your original,
yes.
this is the ancient language, learn it.
Yes.
Makes it
Yes.
tough for you.
Me and Brom have strong opinions that are the same.
That feels right, yeah.
So the Darth Dart is for sure going to change the game here, and now we have a reliable tool to take out our good old friend Gal and at least one of his minions, Shuriken.
Yeah.
So all in all, it's a lucky find. You
Yeah.
can't hate that.
No.
But you know what does have hate?
What has hate, Dane?
The haters. Just kidding. No hate today.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, there's no hate today.
No hate in our hearts. We are changed people starting this season. No,
Yeah.
there will be haters
Yeah,
later.
but there's gonna be haters. There's some pretty big ones actually.
But not today.
Not today. So now, as any good readers of fantasy knows, there's always things that fandoms nitpick.
Yes.
Because, well, they're fantasy fans. And that's what we do. It's just
us.
what we do.
Yeah.
But this week, there aren't any major gripes. Or
Okay.
anything too crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip the nitpicking from the haters.
Yeah.
And instead have a nice fireside
Hell
chat
yeah.
with you, Jazz. All right? Some random thoughts I've had
Okay.
that I thought might be fun to discuss.
Uh-oh.
All right? Because you're my friend.
Yeah.
And let's face it.
And because I'm your friend, I know what your random thoughts are like.
Yes. But you're also trapped in here with me.
Oh.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
choices have been made. Choices have been made.
So first off, I just want to say that I think the strongest part of the series for me is the world building.
Okay.
It is top tier.
Yeah.
And despite some of the later additions to the magic system, it's one of the better hard magic systems in fiction, I think.
Yeah.
There are a few better ones, but there are a lot worse. That being said, what is something in this reread that you have really enjoyed? And what do you think Paolini is doing right in these books?
I think it goes right along with the world building, more of a mechanic of that,
Yeah.
I guess is a good way to put it. I like in a lot of ways, I think Christopher Paolini's style of prose really builds that world effectively. It gives us an image in our mind's eye. I think in a lot of times, especially when it comes to describing epic natural landscapes or mythical cities. Like he gets this really descriptive style. And then when it comes to things that are or can be more emotional, like looking back or reminiscing, I think his prose takes a turn for like the more emotional description. So it tugs at our heartstrings. I think he uses a lot of what works in a coming of age tale to accomplish those things. It makes us feel the wonder of discovering new things like when we were kids, the emotion of situations like when we were kids.
What you're saying is he builds wonder and it's really working for this.
I think
he's building attention in that coming of age
I think
story.
all those things work in concert together, the world building, the descriptive prose, and the coming of age like overarching saga, I think make a good triple-headed monster. That is a very good thing about this book.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I like I said, I like the magic system, but I also think that he uses mystery really well. You know, even in times where I don't like it, like Angela is one of them. Like I do think he uses mystery effective and not telling and then you can see this in a lot of things. And like, look, for instance, like the Razak, for instance, there's a lot of like mysteries, even with Galbatorix as a main protagonist, or main antagonist that we just have not seen.
Well, using like the Jaws strategy to keep him off screen for so long to only learn of him through hearsay, finally have him like possess somebody, and we only get his words in the last book. You know what I mean? There's
a gravitas that brings. We get to create all the horror. There's some people who don't like that, but for me, I think he does that well. And since we're talking about what Paolini has done right, I think it's only fair to say that this is one of the most famous dragon books in modern fantasy. Okay. Maybe only beaten probably by Fourth Wing now. I think it's because of the cool dragon order, the dragon bond, the dragon characterization that he wrote into this world. And like I said, the world building is something, again, that he does well. Yeah. So since he has done so well with dragons, is there another fantasy staple or fantasy trope you would like to see from Paolini?
I mean,
in the future?
Do you have to ask, Dane? I'm like, you don't even finish the question. I got it. It's magic school, Dane. Never forget, it's always going to be magic school. Because I feel like Aragon learns so much, but like on the fly and under pressure. I would love to see Christopher Paolini tackle like the camaraderie that arises at a school of magic, and then really have, I think, like the time and space to explore a hard magic system, because we know he's good at creating one. But I think having, you know, the epic, like overarching saga of the world ending and we need to fix it doesn't sometimes allow him to like flex his muscle there as much as I think he'd be really, really good at. Yeah. Like
diving into more character driven troubles within a school setting where they're learning how to use that. I think, you know, it's funny you said something there that I've never thought about. This probably would lend itself to more of that too, just because of the whole mind reading, sharing your essence, hearing consciousnesses. That could be kind of cool. Yeah. All right. I don't know.
What about you?
I don't know. I want him to describe. I want owlbears.
Just anything with owlbears.
I fucking love owlbears. I mean, if you don't know what an owlbear is, guys, if you're like not a D&D Pathfinder or like TTRPG like player, an owlbear is a bear. Like it's just a giant bear.
Wait. Is it also an owl?
It's covered in feathers.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did.
And it's an owl. It's an owl bear. Yeah. And I love these things. I don't know why. I'm obsessed with them. I just love them. I have one tattooed on my body.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's real. It's real.
So you want Christopher Paolini's like nightmare fucked up owl bear?
Yeah, I want like a fucked up owl bear scene. I think he could handle that. I think he could do that. I want him to bring like true fear and terror to like an owl bear, because sometimes they're a little goofy. I think he could fuck that up. Yeah. Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
A positive fuck that up. Fuck that up is a compliment on this podcast.
Yeah, that's what we like here.
I was going to say on that note. Yeah. Now that we firmly established, what do you want to fuck up before we head out for the day, Dane?
Well, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to rate and review on Apple Podcasts to be entered into our merch giveaway. Yes. Don't forget, you're only entered if you confirm with an email to isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com. It's the same place you can hit us up with questions, feedback, and recommendations for other books to cover in the show. And we do respond. We will respond to you. We've gotten some emails and it's fun.
Yes, and we definitely love the recommendations for the next series we want to cover when sadly we have to leave the inheritance cycle behind us. So keep those coming. If you do want to keep pace and read along with us, on our next episode we'll be covering Chapter 11, No Rest for the Weary, through Chapter 17, Dras Leona. We're going back
We're always near that late.
Fantasy. We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be.